Hi and welcome. Next on Pressing Matters, remove or repair the costly predicament facing Michigan's dams and what a future with or without them looks like. As the summer of 2026 continues to see record high temperatures, we look ahead to an El Niño weather pattern and its impact on the upcoming winter. Michigan ranks 47th in the nation for psychiatric bed space. We take a look at the behavioral health deserts forcing patients in central and northern Michigan to travel hundreds of miles for critical care.
They're aging, they're falling apart, they're crumbling, they're in need of repair or more drastic measures. They're not safe. If a dam fails catastrophically, that can result in a lot of negative issues.
State leaders are sounding the alarm about major concerns surrounding Michigan's dam infrastructure. Most of the state's dams were built in the late 1800s and early 19th century. Now, their primary purpose then was to power local lumber and flour mills. Eventually, they mainly turned to generating electricity. A lot, though, has changed over the years, and today, very few serve their original purpose. Most exist for recreational hobbies, like boating and fishing. Maintaining a dam isn't cheap. Most of them are well beyond their life expectancy and need significant work to meet safety standards. Repairing versus removing a dam are conversations happening in communities across Michigan. With the aging infrastructure, invasive species, and climate change leading to stronger storms and flooding, addressing this crisis and figuring out how to pay for it all is now more important than ever.
It's unique and different. And so it's important that we work with the dam owner and the community and all the stakeholders to create that menu of factors that are important to all of us, and then weigh the pros and cons during the decision-making phase as to what to do with this dam.
As Michigan's dams age, figuring out the best way forward is a team effort.
The collaboration of federal, state, tribal, local, and private entities is crucial to the success of a dam removal effort.
Kim Balke is with the Conservation Resource Alliance. Their mission is river restoration throughout Northwest Michigan. When it comes to dams, they provide information to dam owners through the decision-making process.
And then if they decide to remove the dam, we fill that project manager role in collaborating with partners, helping with the fundraising, in coordinating, the design, permitting, construction, post-monitoring, all of those phases.
We met Kim at the Baldwin River Dam, not far from downtown. It's seen its share of destructive flooding, including 2010, 2011, and 2019. The dam is currently going through the multi-year long process of being removed and will end up reconnecting 12 miles of main stem river.
So Baldwin Dam started out in the 1800s, supporting a sawmill and a grist mill. It was transformed into a water source for the nearby railroad. And in the 20s, it became a trout rearing facility. So it was in state ownership as that facility for a good 50 years or more. And fast forward to today, it's in private ownership. The structure is not being used anymore for its original purpose. And the current owner would like to restore the river here and not have the risk and liability associated with all of this infrastructure. The owner of the dam contacted CRA upon purchasing the site and asked if we would assist with the removal and restoration.
There are anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 dams in Michigan. Some are owned by the state and some are privately owned. Every single one of them requires maintenance and repairs over their lifetime, and that adds up.
Dams are just a huge issue. They're in the news, I feel like, almost daily these days. Probably the biggest issue with dams is the fact that repairs to dams are incredibly costly, and the question often comes down to who will pay for the repairs to a dam if indeed it is going to be repaired.
Mark Tonello is with the Michigan DNR Fisheries Division. He's seen the damage and destruction caused by dam breaks and failures firsthand.
From a fishery standpoint, obviously fish kills, habitat damage, but from a human standpoint, it can involve loss of life, damage to public infrastructure like roads and bridges and road crossings, and then private infrastructure like homes and yards and outbuildings and all those kinds of things.
Now, to understand why dam failures can be so devastating is to understand the purpose and flow of water.
One of the primary functions of a river is to move sediment downstream. That's what they do. That's what they've been doing in Michigan since the glaciers receded. When you build a dam in a stream, it blocks that function. And that impoundment essentially acts as a sediment trap where the sediment falls out and settles on the bottom of the impoundment and does not pass downstream. Especially when there's a catastrophic dam failure, that's when the sediment can be released. And this is 100 years of sediment piled up behind a dam, released all of a sudden at once, can be an utter catastrophe.
The impoundment is the lake that's created by the dam. With the sediment having nowhere to go, it builds up. Dams also block the passage of fish and warm the river, making it harder for some species to survive. But some dams today do serve an important purpose in helping control the spread of sea lamprey.
If they did not do that, the fishery that we know and love in Lake Michigan, the salmon, the lake trout, the steelhead, that would disappear very quickly. And so a dam that blocks sea lamprey is one that we've got to have some extra discussions about before we just yank it out. So we do like to look at every dam on a case-by-case basis and look at the pros, look at the cons, and a lot of times the discussion comes back to, okay, keeping the dam would cost so much, removing the dam would cost less, and then if you keep the dam, you're going to have to pay in the future for even more maintenance. So a lot of times the discussion for maintenance versus removal comes down to economics.
Dams can break and fail. In 2020, the Edenville Dam and then the Sanford Dam suffered catastrophic fail after record-breaking rain. The destruction was swift. A massive surge of water drained from Wixom Lake, displacing thousands and causing hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. Dams that meet a certain height requirement are inspected by the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy. In recent years, they've increased staff to handle inspections and safety plans. But it wasn't always that way.
In about 2019, it was me. I was the only one in the program. So when you're stretched that thin, you're really focused on making sure that the inspections are done, that permits are getting issued for repair of dams, but then your ability to do compliance and enforcement is limited to only the most severe cases, the most urgent. So you're doing a lot of triaging, like this can wait, this can't wait. Now we're up to 8 people in the unit. So we have much more staff. And then we have more frequent communication with owners. We're being more proactive with outreach and education, things like that. So we have, since the Edenville failure in 2020, we have staffed up and increased the size of the program. So we are much better off in terms of being able to stay on top of all of our day-to-day duties, but then also devote more time to compliance and enforcement. We are much more proactive at trying to get ahead of emergencies and encouraging dam owners to take necessary action before we have a potential dam failure on our hands.
The aftermath of the Edenville Dam failure also changed how Eagle prioritizes dam safety.
I think what we've done is using a more risk-informed decision-making process, which is we need to understand the risk at every dam. Risk is kind of a combination of what are the consequences of failure if it were to fail, but what is the likelihood of that failure? So if we understand that this dam both has a high likelihood of failure and a high risk or a high consequence if it does fail, that's one of our riskiest dams. We need to devote resources, spend more time with that dam owner, identify funding potential.
Whether an existing dam remains or is removed, it all boils down to money. Who's going to pay for it, especially with costs usually well into the millions?
The reality is that we are receiving a lot more applications for dam removal. It's not very easy. So there's a lot of environmental considerations and costs associated. So I would say that nothing rehabilitation or kind of construction or removal of dam, none of them are relatively easy. The difference being dam removal typically has more public assistance available. There are grant opportunities for dam removal, stream restoration, habitat restoration from the federal government, from the state. So I think that it comes down to an economic decision a lot of times for dam owners is, hey, the folks around the pond really want to keep the dam. We've got a cost estimate from our engineer to rehabilitate and bring the dam into modern safety standards. That cost is very high. The cost of removal is also very high, but we can get the majority of that cost covered through grants. That becomes the path forward.
For those living on or thinking about buying waterfront property, knowing if it's controlled by a dam matters. Both Eagle and DNR are able to help buyers learn about nearby dams before purchase. You just need to reach out.
Most of the time when folks buy property on an impoundment, there's no guarantee that the impoundment is always going to be there. And so that is a risk you take if you purchase quote-unquote waterfront property on an impoundment. You know, that is can be a risk. The problem with maintaining dams is it's a gift that keeps on giving. And so if you're going to maintain it, that's fine. It's not a one-time cost. You got to pay now, and then you got to pay again the next time it needs repairs. They may see their property values decline if the impoundment goes away. On the other hand, they might have streamfront property, which is valuable as well. It depends on the property ownership of the impoundment. Who owns what.
Change can be a challenge. In Baldwin, the years-long project to remove the old dam continues. Kim tells us the decision to remove dams is one that's never taken lightly, but she's seen the rewards for herself.
So the most common questions we get from people with dam removal is, what are we going to do with all the sediment in the impoundment? What will the downstream impacts be, having a river actively flowing again? What will public access and use look like? And where is the river going to be? Where is it going to flow throughout that impoundment? It's rewarding to see a sediment-laden warm water impoundment be returned, to the river or creek that it originally was. We are reconnecting miles upstream to miles downstream. We're managing that sediment, moving it around to daylight, the creek or the river. It's rewarding to see fish and wildlife and aquatic insects, come back and inhabit those reaches and then be able to move freely up and downstream.
Those aging dams are especially vulnerable during severe weather. Since the beginning of just 2026, we've seen multiple roads washed away and communities flooded. Scientists and researchers agree the stronger storms and heavier rainfall are linked to climate change. We recently spoke with Daria Kluver, a professor in the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences at Central Michigan University. She explains what's behind the stronger storms and the potential effects of an El Niño weather pattern and what it could mean for weather here this winter.
There are multiple ways to define an El Niño event. The most common is there's like a patch of the ocean in the middle of the Pacific called the Niño 3.4 region that we monitor for sea surface temperatures. It's big. It's about 2.4 million square kilometers. So that's like more than 42 Michigans. So it's a big piece of ocean. We monitor the ocean temperatures and we measure how much warmer than average the temperatures are. And that's how we determine if an event is happening or how big it is. So if the temperatures are more than 0.5 degrees above average, it's technically an El Niño event. And then as the temperatures are warmer and warmer than average, we have kind of different categories. If it's more than 2 degrees Celsius warmer, that's a very strong El Niño event. And I think it was sometime in the 90s, in the scientific literature at least, somebody was writing a paper and they called a very strong El Niño a super El Niño. And I don't know, I guess people thought that sounded cooler. But technically, it's just a very strong El Niño.
So what kind of weather can we expect here in Michigan then from an El Niño?
So a jet stream that's usually in Mexico, it's usually south of the continental US, it pushes it farther north. And so that's why you would get like a jet stream sort of coming into Southern California, and you can get a lot of flooding in Southern California and the southern tier states during an El Nino. And that pushes the polar front jet. That's the jet stream that we usually see. That pushes it farther north. And the polar front jet separates like the warmer air in the continental US, maybe that comes from like the Gulf, from the cold Arctic air and the Canadian air. And so if that jet stream, that boundary gets pushed north, then we're going to be in the warmer air. So that's why during El Nino years, we typically have warmer than average temperatures. And then that, of course, is going to affect how long our snowpack sticks around and things like that.
Where can someone go if they want to learn more about changing weather or climate change?
So I would absolutely encourage people to look at the National Weather Service and the Climate Prediction Center, especially if you want to find out more about El Nino. They have really cool graphs that show like every day the sea surface temperatures, and you can like watch how the El Nino event is progressing. So if you just search Climate Prediction Center or your local National Weather Service on their webpage, they have links to all of those sorts of discussions.
Well, Daria, thank you so much for joining us and for talking with us today. More people are talking openly about mental health than ever before. But many parts of Michigan are considered behavioral health deserts. Jamie Mankiewicz breaks down the critical bed shortage that's forcing some to travel hundreds of miles for help.
Michigan is known for its natural beauty, with endless shorelines, hidden trails, and massive forests. What it's not known for are deserts, sometimes hidden in plain sight. In central Michigan, the northern Lower Peninsula, and the Upper Peninsula, both adults and children facing mental health challenges are struggling to find the help they need.
The northernmost state psychiatric facility is in Cairo, Michigan, which is in my district. That's a long ways from Traverse City. It's a long ways from the bridge, and so it's even longer from some place like Marquette or Menominee. What a desert looks like is when a person is in crisis and they need support, and maybe they go into Munson for a ER because they don't know what to do.
State Representative Matthew Bierlein serves as the chair for the House Oversight Subcommittee on Public Health and Food Security, which recently released a report on the state's underperforming behavioral health system. The investigation found Michigan ranks 47th in the nation in psychiatric bed space.
Decades of disinvestment. Psychiatric care is hard, right? It's first of all, I think people in general, like the general public, has a hard time wrapping their head around mental health needs. In addition to that, we had in this country a history of not handling mental health facilities very well. And our answer to that in the late 90s and the early 2000s was to close state-run facilities. That process has been a major factor as to how we got where we are today.
When broken down by the numbers, the shortage is shocking.
When I tell people that the national average is between 30 and 40 beds per 100,000 people, and in Michigan we have 19, and the majority of those that are actually acute beds run by the state is much less than that.
Construction is underway on 3 major inpatient psychiatric facilities in the Lower Peninsula. The Southeast Michigan Psychiatric Hospital in Northville Township, with 264 beds, fully funded by the state. The U of M Sparrow Behavioral Health Hospital, a public-private partnership with 120 beds. The Southridge Behavioral Hospital in West Michigan, a private joint venture with 96 beds. And earlier this year, Pine Rest, a private provider, opened Michigan's first pediatric psychiatric care facility in Grand Rapids. But as you head further north, the help is simply not there.
I guess 50% of our adults are being sent downstate or out of state. All of our kids, of course, have to go downstate or out of state because the 21 counties of northern Michigan, we have 0 beds for kids.
Kate Dahlstrom is the president of the National Alliance on Mental Illness for the Grand Traverse chapter.
Approximately 2018, when we moved up here full time, our youngest son was struggling, and I didn't have a clue where the resources were to get him help. And so I'm not even sure how I found out about NAMI, but I did. And I took one of the classes and attended some support groups. Then the more involved I was, the more I realized that we have some serious gaps in our mental health continuum of care that we need to fix. Families have been struggling in a huge way for years. And so we're making noise up here in northern Michigan, and it's time for a change.
The recent report outlined 6 major recommendations to deal with the problem, including establishing a dedicated behavioral health campus in northern Michigan.
It's called the Northern Michigan Mental Health Campus, and it would a state of Michigan inpatient and residential treatment center serving children and adults. So we found a pretty central location where there's, a lot of northern Michiganders could access this, and the location was just west of Kalkaska.
It's unclear when this project will potentially move forward. For now, families are trying to navigate the system in real time. What actually happens if you're a person in central or northern Michigan in the middle of a mental health emergency, or are trying to find help for someone that you care about? In these desert areas, the first stop is almost always a local emergency room.
CMH comes in usually within about 3 hours, community mental health, CMH, within about 3 hours. That's kind of the standard to do an assessment. And then they start looking for placement. Closest place to some place like Traverse City is probably Grand Rapids-ish. We know that family support, family input, caretaker support, just loved ones being involved in your recovery is really important. And now they're a 2.5-hour drive every time you have to have a family therapy session. It's not conducive to treatment. It's not conducive to healing. As a result of that distance and that lack of beds in northern Michigan, whether it's in the UP or it's just in northern Michigan, it causes long-term lack of care. It's why people wind up not being treated, because they don't have access to it.
Corey Thompson is the clinical director at Pleasant Psychology in Mount Pleasant and specializes in helping children aged 2 to 18. She says it's not uncommon to see local families make significant sacrifices to get a child time in therapy.
We have numerous families that are traveling over an hour to get here. And I would say the reason being is because in the areas that they live in, there's not a facility that specializes in child mental health. If you have an 8-year-old, we don't want them just to see somebody who works in mental health. It is somebody needs to see an 8-year-old who specializes in child mental health. Like right now, I'm thinking of a family who travels weekly to come and see us that travels an hour and 20 minutes one way. And it breaks my heart, but at the same time, I'm so grateful that they're willing to come here.
Thompson warns, even when families manage to track down an outpatient provider, health insurance roadblocks and steep out-of-pocket expenses regularly force parents to make some tough decisions.
We have some kids that are coming twice a week because of the severity of their needs, the co-pays, the cost it takes, the time to come off of work, the kid missing school. It is an extreme financial barrier for families. There shouldn't be a financial barrier to getting a child the help that they need.
Local providers and advocates agree that fixing the shortage isn't just about building new facilities. It's about changing how the entire system works from start to finish.
If you had a heart attack or anything else that you had fixed in the hospital, you go home and you've got physical therapists, you've got occupational therapists, you've got immediate everything. That doesn't happen with mental health. You're discharged and good luck. So long, hope we don't see you again. We're wasting millions, probably billions of dollars because we're not doing it right in the first place, the first time.
I think it's a problem that doesn't get solved by any one person. It will take coalitions of people coming together, and it can't be, the state can't fix it by itself, and the privates can't fix it by themselves. Community mental health is not going to fix this by themselves. It's going to take everybody working together to make this happen, because it's the only way we're going to get a handle on the current situation.
If a family has to call for 6 months, they're going to stop calling, right? And because it's exhausting. It is fully exhausting. So yes, to be able to eliminate all of those barriers would just be calming, peaceful, just allow a family to get the support that they need.
Finding the right care in northern and central Michigan can feel like an uphill battle, but immediate support is within reach. If you're struggling, call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. A long legal battle over 9 Democratic-led bills is over following a veto from Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The Michigan Supreme Court declined to hear a challenge tied to the legislation, forcing House Republicans to release the bills after an 18-month stalemate. Hours after finally receiving them, the governor vetoed all 9. Among them was a bipartisan proposal to move state corrections officers into the state police pension system. It's a story we highlighted earlier this year on Pressing Matters. In her veto letter, Governor Whitmer blamed House Republicans for holding the bills, writing, quote, "Implementing these bills retroactively would impose an insurmountable administrative burden. This was political gainmanship at its worst." Both Republicans and Democrats, along with union leaders, hope to use the pension system as a tool to help deal with a severe staffing crisis. Byron Osborne, head of the Michigan Corrections Organization, the union representing corrections officers, criticized the decision, telling WCMU the department's pay and benefits is not at a level that's going to be able to effectively attract and then keep people working in this line of work. Governor Whitmer says she is willing to work with lawmakers on new versions of the bills. WCMU will continue to follow this developing story. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your continued support for public media. We'll see you again soon for another edition of Pressing Matters.